how do we do all of that together so no one of us feels disproportionately responsible for carrying this whole burden alone?
Hi, I'm Professor Leah Ruppanner. As a sociologist, I've made it my life's mission to take down every ridiculous gender myth out there. Like, do pretty people get paid more, or are women better multitaskers? This is MissPerceived.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to MissPerceived. On today's episode, I'm going to do a episode coming from feedback that I got from one of you as a listener. I always tell you to reach out to me, tell me what you think, things I've missed, ideas that are being, activated as you listen to my podcast. And one of you reached out and gave me an email that said, "Hey, I'm listening to your podcast. It's making me think about the world in a different way. One of the questions I have for you is, why are you not taking a more strengths-based approach? And what does that look like for you?" And so I thought this would be a great topic and a great episode to help you all understand, A, what is even a strengths-based approach, and where do I see this integrating into the work? Because I think that there's value in taking a strengths-based approach, and I think there's value in thinking about structure and agency in a way in which I know at times can be overwhelming, but I hope can also be empowering. So, thank you for your feedback. Thank you for the emails. I love them. I love them. I love them. Keep them coming. And they really do help me think about what I'm talking to you about, think about how I should do the research, thinking about what kind of questions are salient for you. So I am not joking when I say, send me an email, reach out to me. I tell you this at the end of every single podcast, and I mean it. Okay. So for those of you who are listening who don't know what a strengths-based approach is, basically it is this idea that we take a strengths-based approach and we start to help individuals or groups or communities start to think about what existing strengths, what existing capabilities, what existing resources and potential they have that they can use to activate to overcome problems. Strengths-based approaches are kind of the counterweight to what might be, a deficit-based approach. And a deficit-based approach is saying let's look at what we can do in this. Let's look at our strengths rather than potentially our problems, our deficits, or our weaknesses. When I go into the beautiful Copilot, it gives you this definition. I'll give it you a clear definition, AI generated. Asterisk, I'm giving you an AI generated definition. And it says a strengths-based approach is a collaborative framework that identifies values and builds upon people's skills, knowledge, assets, resilience, and social supports to help them achieve positive outcomes and address challenges. What it talks about is hey, how do we look at our community and our groups, and what are the resources we can activate now? How do we start to think about the fact that we are individuals who are resilient? We can overcome problems, challenges because of things that are innate within us or resources within our community. Or how do we do that? How do we become empowered so that we can make our own decisions? We can control what's affecting us and we can rely on it. It talks about thinking about how do you connect community and partnership, and how do you leverage existing resources. So strengths-based approaches saying there is a problem, how do we step in and overcome it? So here's where I want to go on this. I think a strengths-based approach is essential. I think we have to be able to activate the resources that we currently have and be able to figure out how to step in the now. This is part of why I created the Mental Load Audit. This is part of why I created a concrete tool that you can use to help both identify your mental load, figure out when stuff is being wasted, when your mental load is being drained by superfluous, unnecessary, stuff that actually you shouldn't be carrying, to start to get clear on your values, your priorities, to start figure out who you want on your team and your network, to start working towards your goals and your ambitions, and to start aligning your mental load energy with purpose. This is why I've created the Light and Lab website, where you can specifically go and start to understand what mental load you are carrying in a day-to-day. It's free. I'm not taking your email address. I just want you to start to be able to get a handle on where your mental load is and start to, benchmark, right? And this is in part because a lot of the criticism is often around some of the sociological concepts is hey, wait a minute, you guys are pointing out structural issues and challenges, but what do I do as an individual now? And how can I activate unique characteristics within my community that actually will help maybe to alleviate some of these challenges. I'm going to give you an example of this. I'm going to say to you, like, I do not think this is an either or. I don't think you either take a strengths-based or a deficit-based approach. I think you have to have both and they're integrated, but there are limitations to both. Sophie and I are currently working through our data and on a research project about LGBTQI plus families. And one of the things that keeps coming through the interviews is the ways in which parents who are, in this community are relying on each other, are able to access a community of support who both understands them, but also comes in to support their parenting, support their decision making, support, how they're stepping into the world as parents. It's a real resource. And this would be a strengths-based approach, right? Like that the community themselves, through a history of marginalization, isolation, and hate, actually then come together in a stronger way to contribute to support and love each other. That is a beautiful outcome from a deficit experience. That's a strengths-based approach. They also talk in our data about what's beautiful, what's interesting too is I can understand my partner, right? Like I can understand their mental load. I can understand what they're experiencing because we're, of the same gender or of the same gender, right? So we get each other. And that's another way. And their partnerships then have less friction, less conflict, less overwhelm, less monitoring, less stress. That's another beautiful thing, that from an experience of marginalization, from an experience of oppression, from an experience of being othered, from an experience of being different, you then can bond. You have a shared understanding. You have a deeper empathy. This is again another example of strength-based approach, right? So what I want to say to you is this is definitely something that is coming through the research, and this is definitely something that I want to highlight to you is that it's not always deficit, inequality, oppression, and structural limitations, discrimination, fill in the blank, are not always deficit creating, but they can create moments of agency. They can create strength. They can create moments of empowerment if we can leverage them up. So this can exist. This does exist. This happens, and it is a resource, and I want to acknowledge it. Where I am worried, or where I want to put my asterisks and put my caveat is I worry sometimes that there's so much emphasis, in particular in the US, in particular in these neoliberal hyper-capitalist societies, where we tell people that you are individually responsible for overcoming structural challenges, that if you can't find a job, you need to try harder, that if you don't have health care, you need to work harder, that if you can't get elder or aged or childcare, you need to get a second or third job and figure out how to figure this out, that asking people to engage in strength-based approaches or asking people to individually solve these problems within their community is not a single solution. It limits the structural, it minimizes, it can be corrupted in a way in which I then feel individually responsible for social issues. I then feel that I have to overcome it with my own energy, with my own creativity, with my own ideas, with my own hard work. And for many, that's impossible task to ask. For many, that actually often the structural components are so overwhelming that I can't overcome them. I don't want you to listen to this and be like, the world is terrible. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying to you is, I want you to listen to this and start thinking, sometimes these problems are bigger than me, and asking me to solve them is unfair to me. And I can't hold the individual responsibility of out earning, out energizing, out performing this thing that is actually a weight that is too heavy to carry. That is my goal. My goal is for you to go, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in carrying this. I see that others too are carrying this. I see the way in which there are structures around me that either create opportunity or limit them, make this heavier or lighter. And And maybe I can drop some of the burden, or maybe I can't, but there is an advocacy piece or a policy piece or a structural piece that I can either be a part of the solution, or I can understand and help others understand, so that if I don't have the energy, maybe others can be a part of the solution. And I think this is where it tips into a strengths-based approach, that I can say, what of this is mine to carry? What of this is mine to share with the community? What of this is mine to ask for help with? What of this do I need others involved? I don't have the strength to carry this, but I would like you in it. What others of this do we need, not just our own community, but coalition building, to make sure that, it's not just falling on those who are the most marginalized to solve the problems of those who are most marginalized. How do we get a collective response to this? How do I see through your individual narrative, your individual story, your individual experience, which I want to say quite clearly, lived experience is a research and a resource and an information that is equally valuable to anything that I'm doing. It is actually what helps us understand the, real experiences. It helps us take data and theory and structure and bring it into a grounded and lived experience. It's all pieces of information that make research and my job powerful. And my information is no better than your information. My research is no better than the lived experience of you. And that kind of information sharing is so valuable on the research perspective. But my question is, how do we find the sweet spot between a strengths-based approach and an understanding of structural limitations and agency? And how do we get clear on the narrative, the stories, and the ask? How do we create coalitions, so we're not just asking communities to solve the problems themselves, but we understand the ways in which we could all work together to either raise awareness, shift structures, change policies, make the world a little bit lighter and more humane? And how do we do all of that together so no one of us feels disproportionately responsible for carrying this whole burden alone? This is my dream, my goal, my ambition for all of you, for all of us, for the collective, for us as a group. And for academic research, right? How does it serve as one piece of this puzzle? How does sociological inquiry, our way of understanding that there are social norms, that there are socialization processes, that there are structures that haven't shifted for years, that there is, it's not the same if you live in a country like the US or if you live in a country like Australia? How do we give you global examples of what it could look like somewhere else? How do we understand how we are all living so we can disentangle what is ours to carry, what we've inherited, and where we need to go next? So, to the wonderful email I got asking, where's the strengths-based approach? Thank you. I appreciate this feedback, and I want to say to you, this is an integral part. Let's integrate it in. And let's understand how we can take that strengths-based approach and add it to a sociological inquiry, an understanding of structure and agency, and change the world. Are you ready? Let's do it together. You, me, all of us together. Okay, I can't wait to change the world with you. So what a delight. As per always, thank you for listening to MissPerceived, where you don't need a PhD, you just get to hang out with me. Man, we're in the charts consistently. We're going up the charts. I hope you're enjoying the socials. We're trying to make sure we're getting more information out to you through the MissPerceived Instagram, through the Light and Lab Instagram, through my own personal Instagram. So I'm really focused on Instagram right now. So check it out if you want to keep getting little research bites, little information. It's all there. I'm pushing it through and you should have access. I hope you have the most wonderful, wonderful week. And may I say to you, you have the power to do it, to change the world. We all do, but not alone. And I'm here to stand with you to do it together. So let's continue the conversation. Have a wonderful week. I love you. And mwah. We are so lucky and grateful that this series is being supported by the Melbourne Public Humanities Initiative at the University of Melbourne.